All right, let's try it again. Can anybody hear me now? Yes, just don't. I have not boomered in a very long time, young man. So just watch yourself. Just saying. Okay. All right. Sound is good. All right. That's better. Let's try this again. Hi, hello, how you doing? You have survived Monday. You've made it through Tuesday, and now you get to come back to the electronic front porch. My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. I am sometimes known as the Great Boomer, among other nicknames that I have been given and earning very quickly. We are on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, and other places on the internet. Some I don't even know about. It could be anywhere. So yes. WWG1 says, I'm doing better than you. Yeah, you ain't kidding, buddy. Let me tell you, you ain't kidding. Jeez. Oh, gosh. Thank you guys for being here. Sorry for the technical difficulties coming in. I thought that I had gotten past all these things, but it happens apparently to the best of all of us. So what do you know? Oh, yeah. We're going to have some fun tonight. Glad to have you guys here. So... oh, well, all right. Well, very good, sir. You're doing better than I am. I've just got agua. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun night. Well, you know, TBA says, no worries, you recovered well. Well, it's all that professional training I've had in broadcasting, don't you know? Anyway, glad to have you here. Welcome back for another session of Chatting on the Porch. I am your host, Boomered and all. So there you go. Glad to have all you kids here. And we got quite a shoe for you tonight. As another legendary broadcaster said, that broadcaster was legendary for all the right reasons. I, on the other hand, am legendary for all the boomer reasons. So there you go. Glad to have you guys here with us tonight. Again, we are on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter. So if you haven't done it yet, send out a message to your friends. Tell them we're here. We've got some news of the day to talk about. And oh boy, have we got a lot of news. Oh my goodness. All kinds of stuff going on. We got campaign news. We got trial news. We got economic news. We got everything happening out there. I tell you what, it is just plain crazy. So let's dig in and we'll get started. First of all, I want to say hello to everybody. Miss 199 herself, how you doing? And yes, I've heard from you. I am infamous. Infamous is about the right word for me. So glad to have, let's see, who else is here in the house? Seabass is here. And Miss Gypsy, love to see you, darling. Good to see everybody. Looking forward to a nice time this evening, and thank y'all for spreading the word with tweets and getters and gabs and truth socials and all kinds of wonderful things. And over on Rumble, we got TBA and WWG1's hanging out with us, and looking forward to having everybody here. Oh gosh, all kinds of news to talk about. Let's start out with some new stuff this evening, and I want to kind of weave in some stuff I didn't get to last night. So, speaking of last night, my post-show routine kind of goes like this. After I get done, I make a phone call to one of my family members just to check on them. They're older, just see how they're doing. And then usually I'm putzing around on the computer for a little while doing stuff. And usually I'll get a phone call from a buddy of mine named Smiling Jack. Now, y'all may have heard me mention this guy's name. Smiling Jack and I have known each other going on, 20 years now. And we got to be fast friends on a political campaign years ago that I was volunteering in. He was consulting on. And we've remained friends ever since. We, bonded over football and politics and philosophy and religion and just about every other subject imaginable under the sun. And what we don't know, we'll make it up as we go along. So I got a phone call from Smiling Jack last night about 10 o'clock. He said, hey, man, have you seen what's going on in New Hampshire? I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm sending you something. I was like, okay. So I get this text message, which is a tweet, and I open it up, and I'm like, oh, we got to talk about this. Straight from the New Hampshire Journal. Shock poll. Trump tied with Biden in blue New Hampshire. Now, let me back up before we get this started. This is not Breitbart. This is not the Gateway Pundit. This is not Revolver. This is not the National Pulse. It's not right wing anything. This is supposed mainstream media. So let's get into this story because this is going to get good, y'all. So first, let me get a sip of agua. All right, let's do the thing. Democrats have all but owned. Get this. Yeah, there you are. Have all but owned the Granite State's 4 electoral votes, winning 7 of the past 8 presidential contests, including Joe Biden's 8-point victory over President Donald Trump in 2020. But the latest New Hampshire Journal Personas Analytica poll finds Biden tied with Trump in New Hampshire, putting him at risk of becoming the first Democrat to lose the state since Al Gore in 2000. If the presidential election were held today, you would vote for Trump at 36.6, Biden at 36.5, Robert Kennedy Jr. at 14.6, and about 12.5 undecided or none of these. Surveys 862 registered voters taken last week from May 15th through May 20th found Granite Staters evenly split between Biden and Trump at 36, 14, and 12. Those numbers may begin to explain. Get over here. There we go. May begin to explain why Biden is making his second Granite State stop in 2 months, an unusual travel pattern for a Democrat president in a competitive national election. For Biden, who rarely travels far from D.C. or his Delaware beach house, this is particularly notable. Now, I'm going to make a prediction. Between now and November 5th, you're going to see Joe Biden going to places Democrats never should have to go, unless, of course, they're doing it for fundraising purposes. For example, it's not unusual for Democrats to make fundraising swings through California or Oregon or other states out in the West or New York State or et cetera. Okay, that's understandable. That's fundraising. No, what I'm talking about is you're going to see Joe Biden going to places like Minnesota. He's going to go to New Hampshire. He's going to go to New Mexico. I am telling y'all, there is something going on out there. Now, does this mean that every place he goes to, he's going to wind up losing before it's all said and done? No, not necessarily. But the fact that Joe Biden is being put on defense is not a good situation to be in. Because, I mean, think about it. We'll get back to the article here in a second. This is the incumbent Democrat. He has every built-in advantage that every Democrat always has. He's got a sycophant, lazy, good-for-nothing National Press Corps. He's got the bully pulpit of the White House. He's got everything else. Everything, all the trappings of the presidency, everything that goes with it, and he is struggling like you wouldn't believe. I mean, second time in New Hampshire in 2 months. He shouldn't have to do that, but let's get back to this article. Okay, here we go. Biden is scheduled to appear in Nashua on Tuesday. On Monday, the Biden administration announced more than $3 million in brownfield grants to rehabilitate and revitalize communities in New Hampshire, including Nashua and Gettr. Quote, this helps put President Biden's visit this week into greater context, as that sound you hear is the 2024 battleground map expanding for Donald Trump, seemingly putting New Hampshire in play this fall, said veteran New Hampshire GOP strategist Jim Merrill, who worked on the Mitt Romney and Marco Rubio presidential campaigns. According to Personas Analytica Dr. Jonathan Klingler, Biden's struggles come from his loss of support among swing voters. Quote, while registered voters of both parties are largely united around their nominee, independent and undeclared voters are splitting their support in 4 statistically indistinguishable ways. Between Biden, Trump, Kennedy, and other unnamed candidates, Klingler said. In comparison to exit polls from the 2020 presidential election, independent and undecided voters in New Hampshire demonstrate significantly lower support for Biden, as Biden won around 60% of these voters in 2020, compared to around a quarter if the election were held today. Ooh, that's a big drop. That is big. That's like 35%. Biden is struggling in the polls in several states Democrats have done well in for years. The latest numbers show Biden and Trump in a close race in Minnesota, which hasn't backed a GOP presidential candidate since Richard Nixon's 1972 49 state landslide in Nevada, and goes on and on and on. Some Granite State political pros speculated that Biden's weakness with swing or undeclared voters may be in part from his decision to dump the first-in-the-nation primary and his criticism of the Granite State as not diverse enough to be allowed to hold the Democrats' first primary. Quote, he spent months insulting New Hampshire. He wonders why he's got a problem, said one Granite State Democrat and Biden supporter told the New Hampshire Journal on background. Politically active people, our party's base. We understand the big picture, but the average voter thinks he was being a jerk to us. And I tell you what, I knew this was going to come back to haunt him. Now, does this mean he's going to lose New Hampshire in November? Look, they won 7 of the past 8 presidential elections up in New Hampshire for the Democrats. So we're talking a period of what, 32 years? The last time that a Republican won New Hampshire was 2000 when W beat Al Gore. So statistically speaking, I'd say the odds are still in Biden's favor. But the fact, with about 5.5 months to go, that you've got polls coming out of New Hampshire showing that it's tied, I'm telling y'all, he is in trouble nationwide. Every time a poll comes out, it gets even worse for this guy. So the president made a visit to New Hampshire today, and as you might expect, voters up in the Granite State had some opinions about all this. Well, I've got a little bit of a video clip. Thought I'd show it to you guys. Thought you might enjoy it. Do me a favor. Check this out.
What do you make of his visit?
Not interested. I don't actually care for the man, particularly. I think he's done a lousy job, and can't wait for the election.
I don't think he's going to win the state, and I think it was pretty bold of him to try to take our history of being the first of the primaries.
Uh-oh, wait a minute. Apparently we got another sound problem. Hold on, y'all. Ugh, this is making me mad. Thought I had this bug worked out. No, apparently not. Hang on. Okay, let's try this again. Sorry about that, folks. All right, let's see if we can do this. All right, now let's see if we can do the thing. Oh, my sound is fine? Okay. Did you hear any of the clip? I guess that's my main question. Did everybody hear the clip? Oh, don't do that to me. That's awful. Oh, Z Highness, if I didn't love you so much. Woman, do not do that to me. Anyway, so yeah, you get the point. Nobody up there, and you heard what that lady said. I want to get back to the last part of her comment here real quick. Hang on. I will play this part again.
I don't think he's going to win the state, and I think it was pretty bold of him to try to take our history of being the first of the primaries.
I am telling you, that stuff counts. States like New Hampshire and Iowa, to a certain extent, are very, very particular about this kind of thing. Okay, they do not like it at all when you start messing with their first in the nation status. They get cranky over this kind of thing. So yeah, here's an article about Biden's visit, and it wasn't even really a campaign swing. It was more like a presidential event, but still, it just, the fact he's having to go to New Hampshire twice in 2 months. Biden to visit New Hampshire, Boston on Tuesday. Article by Sung Min Kim from the Associated Press. President Biden, intent on selling his legislation this year, will travel to New Hampshire on Tuesday to detail the impact of a law that helps veterans get key benefits as a result of burn pit or other toxic exposure during their service. In raw numbers, more than 1 million claims have been granted to veterans since Biden signed the so-called PACT Act into law in August of 2022. The administration said Tuesday the amount that amounts to about 880,000 veterans and survivors in all 50 states who have been able to receive disability under benefits of the law. Now, you might say to yourself, well, it's not a campaign event. Well, that's true, but remember what I said a minute ago. The trappings of the presidency. Air Force One coming down out of the sky, landing on your airport's runway, the limousines, the Chevy Suburbans, the whatever, and yeah, it's a presidential event. It may not be a campaign event per se, but don't think he's not mixing business with pleasure here. Now, there was one part about this article that I would like to point out because it kind of leads to something else. Let's go back to this article from WBUR. Biden is also set to make a stop in Boston Tuesday evening to attend 2 campaign events. See what I said about traveling to raise money? Okay, Massachusetts, it's a Democrat state. He's there to raise money. I'm not surprised by that. Boston police posted on social media notifying drivers of street closures near Logan Airport and the Seaport and Back Bay neighborhoods. Drivers should expect delays. Now, here's the part that I want y'all to catch. Watch this. Pro-Palestinian activists also plan to hold a 3:30 rally outside of South Station in protest of Biden's support for Israel in the ongoing war in Gaza, according to posts on social media from a coalition of groups. Now, we've been chronicling here on this channel, and other content creators have been doing the same thing, that Biden right now has an enormous problem inside the base of the Democrat Party on this whole question of what's going on over in Gaza between Israel and Hamas. Well, the initial attack on Israel happened October 7th of last year, and the effect, the wave, is still being felt on and on and on it goes. Now everywhere, I mean, it seems like anyway, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong on this, at some point, you know, it seems like every day there's some kind of protest of Biden somewhere. Oh yeah, the foreign policy is awful on by any number of criteria you can make that statement. It's just absolutely amazing to me. But I point out that last paragraph because I want to get to something else that I think you guys are going to find very interesting. This is from Breitbart. I just saw this afternoon. Headline: Trump makes inroads with Arab Americans, Muslims as they abandon Biden. What is this? What is this, you say? Well, let's take a look. Article by Nick Gilbertson. We've got the following. Former President Donald Trump's allies are reportedly working to make inroads with Arab American activists and donors as polling shows he is crushing Joe Biden with Arab Americans and Muslim voters in crucial swing states. Washington Post columnist Josh Rogan reported Monday that, quote, Arab American donors and activists from around the country plan to convene in Oakland Hills, Michigan, for a private dinner initiated by Trump's former acting director of national intelligence, Rick Grenell. Among those in attendance will be Michael Boulos, who is married to Tiffany Trump, and his father, Dr. Mossad Boulos. Insider notes that the elder Boulos is the CEO of SCOA Nigeria PLC. The New York Times previously reported he also leads a vehicle assembly and distribution company in Nigeria called Boulos Enterprises. Michael was born in Lebanon and grew up in Nigeria. Josh Rogan points out that the dinner comes on the heels of a Times poll showing that Muslim and Arab Americans have fled Biden for Trump in crucial swing states. The polling average between the 6 battleground states, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, found Trump at a whopping 57% with Muslim and Arab American voters, while Biden scored less than half of that at 25%. Whoa. Here's a tweet from Frank Luntz in the New York Times Santa College poll released last week and goes over the same numbers. Quote, those who say they voted in the 2020 election reported backing Mr. Biden by a similar but opposite margin. 56 to 35, Times chief political analyst Nate Cohn reported on May 13th. The poll was conducted April 28th through May 9th and sampled 4,097 registered voters. As Josh Rogan reported, several of the dinner attendees already supported Trump, while others expressed a potential openness to backing him. One expected attendee, Syrian-American activist Sam Assad Hanna, is undertaking a grassroots effort to turn out the vote for Trump in some swing states. Quote, "We are seeing now in Gaza and across the region has set it backwards by decades. Everyone is thinking, how can we change this? What can we do?" he told Rogan. "That's why people, including me, are now being more active in support of bringing Trump back to office." You know, and I get why. I really do. A lot of times on the right side of the political spectrum, there's always a certain amount of pessimism and gloom and doom, and everything's bad. We're not going to win this election. And oh my God, the country's destroyed, and yada, yada, yada. I agree. After what happened in 2020 and the red trickle that happened in 2022, I get it. Okay. In part, there's a lot of reasons why I bring these articles to y'all's attention. And part of it is I want to kind of keep everybody's spirits up without turning into Pollyanna. Okay. Don't get me wrong. I am not trying to create a false impression of what's going on. I mean, if I think something's phony or something's fake or whatever, yeah, I'll tell you. I'll be straight up with you. You are my audience. I love you guys. I'll always tell you what I think's going on. Okay. But I also point out there is reason to be optimistic. There are all kinds of little things out there percolating. It's like watching a pot of water starting to boil. The bubbles at first are very, very small, but they all come up from the bottom, and inevitably it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden you have a very hot, scalding pot of water that is just boiling up and over. Steam flying everywhere. Potential for absolute purification if that hot water hits something that's dirty. And I think that's kind of where we are in our politics. So, let's see what happens. I point these things out to you. And in that vein, I also need to point out something else, which I just found this a little while ago. And I'm like, oh, I need to share this with everybody. TBA over on Rumble says, "I declare if Trump can't win with that doofus Biden getting himself into trouble left, right, and center, then no one can." You ain't wrong. You are not wrong, TBA. I cannot disagree with you on this. I really can't. It reminds me very much of something that it was something Barack Obama said about Biden. Never underestimate Joe Biden's ability to F something up. Barack Obama might yet be proven right. Just saying. WWG1 over on Rumble says, "What about that handsome man Newsom?" Well, let's talk about that for a second before we move on to our next article. I got to address this because I'm starting, and please drop a comment in on this because I'd love to hear what y'all think about this. I have held for the longest time that the Democrats are stuck with Biden no matter what. Okay. And the reason being is that there's no way that they could replace him by the convention and even have a snowball's chance in hell of winning the election, because campaigns are built around the candidate. You cannot substitute, like fuses in a fuse box, pull one out, put another one in. I tell you what, more and more, I am reading article after article in some very high-level publications in the supposed mainstream media where you got some very smart people who are saying, maybe it's time we ought to replace Joe. I mean, look at the poll, look at everything else. He's effing up everywhere. Trump's coming on like a lion. I mean, maybe we need to get rid of this guy. I'm not going to lie. My confidence in my prediction, I'm starting to get a little shaky here. Are they really serious? Would they really be willing to pull the trigger and do it? I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, political power to Democrats feel like political power is their birthright. Okay? And if you try and take it away, they will move heaven and earth to make sure you can't do it. They will fight to the last ounce of blood in their political body. It's kind of like that old line that Charlton Heston used to say, you'll pry this gun out of my cold, dead hand. Well, that's what the Democrats are when it comes to political power. TBA says, wouldn't that be cool if they finally admitted they effed up with Biden? I don't know that they'd say that they effed up when they did it, as much as they said they effed up that they stayed with him so long. Because, I mean, I can kind of understand the predicament that they're in. Here you got Joe Biden. He's been a loyal warhorse for the Democrat Party, okay? He's finally got what he's always wanted after 50 years. And let's be honest about it. Democrats are getting everything out of him they could ever want. They stick any bill under his nose, and he's signing it, okay? It's ridiculous. He's getting, and the worst of all, not only are the Democrats getting everything they want, they're getting absolutely no opposition from the Republicans in Congress. The Republicans in Congress is going right along with them. Budget fight? No, we don't want to fight you. Just let's keep the government open. Shut down the aspects of the Justice Department. Well, we can't do that. That's controversial. No, we don't want to do that. Defund Ukraine? No, we can't do that. We got to be, we got to be. We got to be, funding Ukraine, The Republicans are not fighting them on anything. The Democrats are getting everything they want. Joe's a happy camper because he's president. So you would otherwise think everything's hunky-dory. The only problem is the Democrats can read the tea leaves about as well as anybody else, and they realize Joe Biden could wind up getting his butt kicked in November at the rate things are going. And like I said, there's only two things that could slow him down Trump down from my perspective. And it would be self-inflicted. One is who he picks for Veep, the vice presidential pick, and the other is Trump's performance in the debates against Biden. If he takes it for granted and he goes in there and gives a performance that shows he didn't even bother to try to prepare for it, or he took the wrong strategy, then yeah, you could breathe life into that corpse of a campaign that is Biden for re-election, okay? But absent that stuff, Biden's in deep doo-doo to the point Democrats are ready to replace him. It's remarkable to me. Oh God, WWG wants to, I want to rub Biden's hairy legs one last time for good luck. That's all you, dude. You can knock yourself out. Just no, thank you. I'll pass. Good evening, Ruben. Good to see you, sir. Yeah. In Ukraine, the presidential term of Volodymyr Zelensky has now passed, and he is operating under martial law. Yeah, democracy. Yeah, we're defending democracy in Ukraine, baby. There you go. So I don't know. I just and it's articles like this next news item that really make me start to wonder, are they really that desperate? Are they really that desperate that they'd swap out Joe Biden at the convention? Check this out. I don't think this poll has dropped yet, but Reuters is already reporting on it. Headline: Biden approval ratings fall to lowest level in nearly 2 years, according to the latest Reuters Ipsos poll. Article by, who wrote this? Jason Lang. U.S. President Joe Biden's public approval rating this month fell to its lowest level in almost 2 years, tying the lowest reading of his presidency in a warning sign for his reelection effort, Reuters Ipsos poll found. The 4-day poll, which closed out on Monday, okay, which means they started last Friday. All right, that makes sense. Showed just 36% of Americans approve of Joe Biden's job performance as president, down from 38% in April. It was a return to the lowest approval rating of his presidency last seen July of 2022. While this month's drop was within the poll's 3% margin of error, it could bode poorly for Biden as he faces off with Republican Donald Trump in the November 5th presidential election. Biden, a Democrat, has been largely tied with Trump in national polls asking how they will vote. But Trump has a slight lead over Biden in many polls in the states seen as most likely to determine the winner of the U.S. Electoral College. The poll laid out Biden's weaknesses as well as a few strengths. The state of the economy was seen as the top issue, picked by 23% of respondents as the most important problem facing the country. Some 21% saw political extremism as the top issue, and 13% picked immigration. Some 40% of respondents in the poll said Trump, who was president from 2017 to 2021, had better policies for the U.S. economy, compared to 30% for Biden, picked for Biden, while the rest said they didn't know or they didn't have an issue. Trump has a significant edge on immigration, with 42% of respondents preferring his approach to the issue, while 25% picked Biden. Now, like I said, I don't think this poll has dropped yet. They just concluded it on Monday. Hang on a second. Let me check one thing here. I checked it before we went on. Nope, it has not dropped yet. It'll probably drop tomorrow. So keep your eyes open for that. But yeah, 36%. Now, there's a lot of things that could happen between now and November. Okay. Perhaps the economy turns around, although I have a really hard time believing that's going to happen. Okay. Perhaps, God forbid, some foreign policy calamity rallies the country to the president and his approval ratings go up. Of course, given the way he's handled foreign policy for 3.5 years, I'm not so sure I want one more foreign policy crisis to fall into this guy's lap, because frankly, I'm not sure I can take it anymore. But my point is, despite my sarcasm, there's a lot of things that can happen between now and November that could change his fortunes and cause his approval rating to rise. Because I'm telling you right now, if he doesn't get this thing up soon, perception is going to become reality. Let's just assume for a moment that all these polls about his approval are just not true, and people love Joe Biden. Now, that's assuming a whole lot, I know, but just stick with me on this, okay? Let's assume for a moment that, the reality is the opposite of what the polls are showing. Well, it's at some point, perception is going to become reality. The perception that he is a bad president, even in the absence of truth, the perception is going to take over. And I'm just wondering how close we are. And I need to reach out to Rich Barris and get him back on here somewhere in the near future. So that one's on me. But I'm just wondering if we're not at the point now where the perception is either locked in or it is close to being locked in. Because I'm telling you right now, the best job approval number I think I saw for Biden. Hang on a second. Let me make sure about this. Give me 1 second here. The best job approval number that I've seen for Joe Biden in the past, call it month, was Fox News at 45%. And that was like the middle of May. Folks, his average right now among all the polls, his average approval rating is just barely, and I mean barely, above 40%. Normally, if you're an incumbent, you need to be at least 45% or higher for reelection. I mean, if that's the one criteria that measures whether you will be reelected or not, you've got to be 45% or higher. He's sitting at 40, and he's got the potential to go even lower before we get to November. So TBA says you can't believe the Fox News poll. You can't believe any of the mainstream media. I don't disagree with you, but I'm just saying that he's got serious trouble. Gypsy over on Rumble says many turned their backs on Biden at Morehouse. Mainstream media said they were Palestine protesters. No, they just despise Biden using blacks. Gypsy, I don't disagree with you in the slightest, dear. I think and we've got a follow up to that story from the other night, and I will get to that here shortly. Oh, so Biden's in trouble. People don't like him. They don't like his policies. And what's Biden doing? Getting desperate. Check this out. Biden administration releases 1 million barrels of reserve gasoline in effort to lower prices. This was as of 2 o'clock this afternoon. Article by Rachel Frazen. The Biden administration, let me get this off here. There we go. The Biden administration is releasing about 1 million barrels of reserve gasoline supplies, framing the move as part of an effort to bring down prices at the pump in northeastern U.S. Can we say New Hampshire? In a statement on the announcement, Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm said Tuesday, described the effort as, quote, strategically releasing this reserve between Memorial Day and July the 4th. This is being done to make sure there is sufficient supply flows to the tri-state and Northeast at a time hardworking Americans need it the most. Biden-Harris is laser focused on lowering prices at the pump for American families, especially as drivers hit the road during the summer. Secretary Granholm, may I respectfully point out to you, gas prices were already low when your boss came into office. Average price of a gallon of gasoline around the country is running about $2.36. Your boss undid every executive order that Trump had put in place, stopped the construction of the Keystone Pipeline, and in doing so, helped start jacking up gas prices. So please don't tell me that you guys are laser focused on bringing down the price of gasoline for American families. You're the ones that caused the price of gasoline to go up. But yes, it's election time. You guys are desperate. You know it. Your boss is in New Hampshire today. He's fundraising in Boston tonight. And you guys know you're losing your butts in places like Michigan. You're losing votes with Palestinian voters. You got the Trump campaign making an outreach and to those Palestinian voters in places like Michigan, which is a very big Arab American population. Yeah, you're getting desperate. So toots, don't give me this. We're laser focused on making things better for the American family. No, you're not doing it. So he's given away the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. We've now got debt and deficits causing worry about a threat to the economy and the markets. This is from 2 days ago. Article by Jeff Cox at CNBC. I mean, where do they go? Where do they go? It's just awful what's going on here. Absolutely awful. And speaking of fundraising, I should have probably brought this story up earlier. Something interesting happened in the month of April, which I didn't think was going to happen. Because normally for Donald Trump in a presidential campaign, it never does. Check this out. And this comes from the Associated Press. This is not right-wing media. Biden and Democrats raised $51 million in April, which is far less than Donald Trump and the GOP's $76 million. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump and the Republican Party outraised Joe Biden and the Democrats. Now, This almost never happens. In 2016, Hillary had a fundraising advantage on Donald Trump that was almost like 2-1. Biden had an advantage in 2020. For most of the 2024 campaign election season, Joe Biden has absolutely kicked Donald Trump's rear end as far as raising money. And now, after he's become the presumptive nominee of the party, Laura Trump is now the co-chair of the RNC. You've got some financing agreements between the Trump campaign and the RNC. They're starting to cook. Now, this might be just a one-off. Okay. Don't know, but we'll see what happens. WWG1, hang on to that. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. I did not get to it yesterday, but we will get to that. TBA says the RNC finally got rid of some of their top rhinos. Bingo! Among other things they're doing to make changes there. So yeah, Trump outraises Biden. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. So yeah, I bring these bits of news to you, and they're a little bit disjointed. But when you start adding them up and you start putting them all together, yeah, there's reasons to hope. Now, let me add one personal, I'll even go so far as to call it spiritual caveat. And this comes from a reformed political junkie. Okay. Yes, there's a lot riding on this election. People should not put their hopes in one man or one political party. The problems that infect us as a nation go beyond the political. The political is the symptom. Okay? The problems are spiritual. Do I want to see Donald Trump win? Yes, I think Donald Trump would make a better president. Do I think Donald Trump is the answer for the United States? No. He might be part of the solution, but he ain't the answer. So I just add, and y'all are smart enough and wise enough to know what I'm talking about, but I'll just say it anyway. Our hope is not in politics. Oh, I love watching it. I love talking about it. I have for almost all my life. But the things that are going to make this country better are things that are higher and nobler than who we are. They are things eternal. So I just add that little bit of caveat. Just saying. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate that very much. It's very kind of you. Yeah, we are. Aw, that's sweet of you. It's nice to know I can be addicting. Anyway, time for a commercial. It's about 8:15 on a Tuesday night. My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. We are on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter, checking out some items in the news, talking about some things going on, and trying to figure out what it all means. So if you haven't done it yet, send out a tweet, a Gettr, a Gab, a Truth Social, and oh, by the way, since it's on my mind and you fellas are here tonight, WWG1 and TBA, what are your thoughts about me making you guys mods over there on Rumble? Now, here's my basic philosophy in this matter. Okay, as a mod, if somebody wants to take a shot at me, fine. I don't really care. Okay. TBA says not me. Fair enough. I mean, if someone wants to take a shot at me in chat on Rumble, fine. I mean, I signed up to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. My only rule about mods is this: if they're being abusive to other chatters, if they start being insulting to other people, bounce them. Okay. Gypsy is gracious enough to be a mod for me over on the YouTube side. And, she does a wonderful job with it. and you guys have been in the chat long enough. I want to make the offer, but yeah, WWG1. After tonight, you will be made a mod. You are declared the Duke of Earl. So there you go. So anyway, yeah, I'm glad you're here tonight. That gets me the chance to ask you about it. So if Zippy says, if Zippy is drunk, shut him down. Well, now look, you can be inebriated in chat. Just don't be, pornographic. Don't be any of that nasty stuff. Just, no, I was thinking of an old joke that that Bugs Bunny knighted somebody one time in a Warner Brothers cartoon and declared that person to be the Duke of Earl. That's how it came about. So there you go. So yeah, okay. I will set it WWG1. I will set it up. You are a mod. So there you go. Okay, by request, and I will admit to you up front, I did not have anything pulled up about this, but I think I can Twitter my way through this thing, or AP my way through it. Give me 1 second here. The Iranian president. Now, for those of you who may not be aware, the Iranian president was killed this weekend in a helicopter crash. And let me do this another way. Hang on a minute. Oops. Excuse me. Was killed in a plane crash, not plane crash, but helicopter crash in Iran. And I've got mixed feelings on this. Let me see if I can pull up a story here. I think I can. Yeah, I can do this. I can do this. Hang on. I haven't forgotten y'all. I'm just trying to find a story that. There we go. We'll go with NBC News. It seems like a good place to start. Let me get this pulled up at WWG1's request. Oh yeah, allergy season is definitely playing with my nose. So there you go. What's next for the regime and the region after Iran's president dies in a helicopter crash? The death of Ibrahim Raisi poses significant questions, not just over his successor, but also that of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Article by Alexander Smith. The sudden death of a leader will shake any country, but the crash that killed President Ibrahim Raisi comes at a particularly precarious moment for Iran and the Middle East as a whole. The Islamic Republic is a regional giant that can ill afford a wobble at the top. Abroad, it is engaged in a shadow war with Israel that has come terrifyingly close to spiraling into an open regional conflict. At home, it is grappling with a long-running economic crisis that's been joined by social turmoil, as brutal protest crackdowns have caused a widening chasm between the ultra-conservative religious elite and the more liberal youth. And NBC brings up a perfectly valid point here. That tension between the religious leaders of Iran and the youth of the country, that's been going on for quite some time. I could probably make a pretty good argument. It's been going on for about at least 15, 20 years that I can think of. I remember very specifically back when Obama first came into office, the Green Revolution in Iran, where you had thousands upon thousands of young people all across the country who were protesting and wanting more freedom in Iran. They remember, or at least they've been told the stories about what Iran was like before the theocracy was set up. They were, grandparents and remember the days of what Iran was like under the Shah. And they were protesting, trying to find, someone to help them, give them voice. They reached out. They practically were begging the Obama administration, just give us a word of support. And Obama didn't do it, or gave them very tepid support. Let's put it like that. So yeah, I think NBC is absolutely accurate in that description. But let's get back to the article. Raisi, 63, was seen by many as a pliant figurehead chosen for his loyalty to the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Iran's aging supreme leader. Former Western officials and experts said it was unlikely the death of Raisi would trigger a major change in how the theocratic government handled international or domestic issues, including Tehran's long-established hostility to the U.S. and its support of Hamas and other proxy groups across the Middle East. Quote, I don't expect any major sort of fundamental shifts in domestic or foreign policy, said Alex Vantakana, senior fellow and founding director of the Iran program at the Middle East Institute think tank in Washington, D.C. Raisi has always been a yes man. While this may not change any immediate policies, foreign or domestic, many observers believed him to be the front runner to replace Khomeini, 85, and his sudden death could upend the battle to helm the theocratic regime. There's lots of money and power at stake when Khomeini dies. And that ain't wrong either. So I'm not going to lie to you. When I first heard about this crash, my first reaction was, did we have anything to do with it? Which really is kind of a sad indictment about the current state of our government, when the first reaction that a U.S. citizen has to the death of a foreign leader under the circumstances that this guy died, and my first reaction is, did the CIA have anything to do with it? Or by the way, YouTube, we're just saying, it's not like the CIA over the years hasn't had a hand in taking down governments before. Just saying. Zippy over on Rumble says CIA installed Iran, theocracy changed my mind. I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to touch that one. Not because I necessarily am afraid of it or I think you're wrong. It's kind of because I agree with you. Just saying. WWG1 says Black Ops is nothing new when it comes to the U.S. Exactly. That said, however, and again, it's very early. We don't have we don't know what we don't know, and we don't have a lot of information yet. All we know is he's crashed, he's dead. So we'll see what happens. But every so often I examine myself when I get a reaction like that, and I'm like, why do I think this? I'm like, well, given past performance of our government in terms of foreign affairs, yeah, you kind of understand why I had that reaction, which is really kind of sad. It's just another reason why the deep state needs some serious reformation, if not cleaning out. So, kind of a brief commentary on it, but WWG, and I should have said something about it last night, but I didn't get around to it. So, let us shift gears and talk about New York City, more particularly the Trump trial. It's now adjourned. Both sides are done presenting their arguments. And it was very brief, the defense that Trump's team put on, because in large part, after Judge Merchan cut the legs out from under one of Trump's key witnesses, which is a former commissioner of the Federal Election Commission, who's an expert on election law, who could have testified to why this whole thing is a farce. Merchan cut the legs out from under him, limiting what he was going to be able to testify to. So they only had one witness, and that was Robert Costello, who was Michael Cohen's former lawyer. And because Cohen had waived lawyer-client privilege, Costello got up on the stand and told as much as he could. Now, I say told as much as he could because Merchan was trying to cut him off at the pass every time he turned around. I mean, Alvin Bragg's prosecution team had raised an objection, sustained. It's ridiculous. So the trial ended probably officially, well, I shouldn't say officially. The arguments and the cases came to a rest probably before noon. So Marshawn tells both sets of lawyers, look, I want you guys back in here at 2:15, and we'll go over jury instructions. Okay. Now, most of the time you would think, oh, well, that's pretty innocuous. Nothing bad could happen there. Folks, if I had any hope that Donald Trump might escape this trial without a conviction on any of the charges that have been brought against him by Alvin the New York Chipmunk and his band of merry prosecutors, what happened this afternoon more or less erases that. And let me explain why. This is a tweet from our friend Joe Neerman, aka Good Logic. Follow his channel, by the way. Unless someone is hoping that the jury will wrongfully convict for completely legal activity, why on earth would a judge refuse to inform or instruct the jury that hush money payments are completely legal and leave that for oral argument? It's mind-boggling judicial error. Now, you're sitting here going, what's he talking about? Well, hang on, we're going to get to that. One of the people who has been doing an absolutely magnificent job of following this trial is a gentleman who goes by the social media handle, the Inner City Press. Robert Gouvet has been using him to talk about the trial, much like others, but Inner City Press in particular. This guy has been giving blow by blow accounting of what's been going on in the courtroom in Manhattan. Well, he covered the jury instruction arguments between the defense and the prosecution in front of Judge Marchand. You got to hear some of this stuff. Check this out. Okay, we're back for charging conference. Trump spoke in the hallway. Marchand, I want to thank you for the submissions I received. The prosecution says in the 4 transmittals, there are 6 joint submissions. Trump's lawyer emailed Beauvais. The FECA predicate has to be a criminal FEC violation. Prosecutor, we oppose including any heightened intent standard. The legislature chose the word unlawful and no more. Now, what he's talking about, Beauvais, is saying, look, we want it understood, the jury to understand, you have to be able to prove criminal intent. The prosecutor saying, nah, we don't have to. The jury doesn't have to worry about criminal intent. They just need to worry about whether it was unlawful or not. Do you guys catch what the prosecution's doing here? Let me put it to you this way. Even without being a lawyer, okay, even though I'm handsome enough you would mistake me for one. Even without being a lawyer, even I understand that part of a prosecutor's job is you have to prove that the individual who's being charged committed the act with willful intent. Okay? In other words, Trump knowingly and with a forethought deliberately put these accounting entries in wrong with the express intent of hiding something from the public and thereby affecting the outcome of the 2016 election. Okay? Which is an absolute farce, considering the fact that, according to testimony, Trump did not make the accounting entries. Trump did not direct the accounting entries. Trump had nothing to do with the accounting entries. And the accounting entries happened in 2017 after he became president. Okay? But the prosecution says, no. Jury doesn't have to worry about intent. Intent? No. They just have to worry about, is it unlawful? Okay? Yeah, TBA's got a good line over on Rumble. In other words, the judge is ordering the jury to find Trump guilty because of reasons. Bingo! And you'll see what we're talking about here in just a second. Let's get back to this tweet thread by Inner City Press. Beauvais, the case the people cite is a civil case, not a criminal case. Marchand, falsifying business records in the first degree requires another crime. How do you respond? Prosecutor says, conspiracy is enough. Beauvais, there has to be a criminal object. Marchand, I'll reserve decision on that, but I will strike the defense's language about in 2016 a candidate could give as much or she wanted. Beauvais, these are issues that we would have gotten in with our proposed witness of Smith. Marchand, it is proposed, quote, if the payment would have been made even in the absence of a candidacy, it is not a contribution. Marchand, let me strike the phrase legitimate press function. Prosecutor, the FEC found that AMI acted outside that exemption. Beauvais, AMI had a large transaction escrowed. Prosecutor Steinglass, you have already instructed the jury about Mr. Cohen's guilty plea. You can do it again. We'd like to use participate, not was convicted of. Wait a minute. Marchand, if the defense crosses the line summation, I can give an instruction. Marchand, while I appreciate the defense's argument, again, I am going to allow the pattern instructions. Beauvais, there is a problem with this two-step accessorial liability causing a causer to cause. Prosecutor, there's a case where a jumper cable caused false claim business record. In the submission I received at 102, proposed basically more and more as you go on with this, you begin to realize that Marchand is basically setting up the jury instructions in such a way that unless the jurors really look past what Marchand's about to instruct them, he's about to instruct them in such a way he's going to basically lead them down the primrose path to finding Trump guilty on some or all of these charges. You watch and see if I'm not right. You know, it's absolute. I mean, here's another example of it. Watch this. Beauvais, the RNC's reaction to the Access Hollywood tape. Prosecutor, no instruction. It's the impact of the defendant of John McCain withdrawing his endorsement. No instruction. Marchand, I'm in agreement with the people. Beauvais, we'd like an involvement of counsel instruction. When Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, told him that the lawyers of AMI said the McDougal contract was bulletproof, the court will not say that and the defense won't. Marchand, I find this argument disingenuous. Sit down. Beauvais, you just called me disingenuous. I'm trying to make an argument. Marchand, I've heard this for months. You will not make that argument to the jury. This is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Zippy says we need to get rid of qualified immunity so badly. If these with authority or power do not follow the law, they should be liable for damages. Hey, I'm reaching the point. I'm ready to do it. I'm with Zippy. I'm with you on this. I really am. This is nuts. He is set. Marchand is about to set up a bunch of jury instructions. That's going to, like I said, it's going to lead these guys right down the primrose path, and they're going to find Trump guilty on some or all these charges. Before I saw what Marchand was doing with the jury instructions, I actually had a modicum of hope that given how bad this case was, that one or more jurors might say, no, we're not convicting Trump of anything in all this. I'm past that point now. I mean, it's unbelievable what Marchand's doing here. It truly is. And if you think what we just read was bad, here's from Politico. Look at this. The judge, to convict Trump of felonies, jury does not need to unanimously agree on what a predicate crime he committed. The issue is central to the prosecution's efforts to convict Trump of felony-level falsification of business records. In other words, if some jurors believe Trump falsified business records solely to cover up a tax crime, while others believe he falsified business documents to cover up an election crime, the jury can still convict Trump of the felony-level falsifying document charges despite disagreeing on what the predicate crime is. This is insane. I mean, I've been saying it for weeks, but it is. It's absolutely insane. Totally. Absolutely insane what we're doing here. Oh gosh. The closing arguments will be next Tuesday. Oh yeah, hey, you're right. I don't either. I don't get it. I don't get it either. Gypsy, I'm like you. This is ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. Just crazy. Just crazy. Okay, there we go. This is madness. Oh, hold on to that small time. We're going to get to it here in just a second. So there's that little piece of news. It's just every time I read about this trial in Manhattan, I mean, I know that Trump's going to appeal. I mean, TBA, I know you're absolutely right. But yeah, he chucked the law right out the window. And you're also right. This trial is going to show people how corrupt the judicial system in New York State is. If not the whole country, but most certainly New York State. Just unbelievable. But anyway, last night, let me shift gears a little bit. Last night we were talking about a story. Oh, Zippy, thank you for the Rumble rant. We have no sane mechanism to correct a corrupt bureaucracy. Reminder, a bureaucracy is a process that makes absurd rules to enforce absurd rules. Yep, absolutely. And thank you for the Rumble rant. I appreciate it. Last night we were talking about Joe Biden's commencement speech that he gave at Morehouse College. Now, some of you were not here last night, so I'm going to play this clip just to kind of set up what we're going to talk about next. For those of you who did not see it, this is part of the speech that Joe Biden gave at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia over the weekend. Folks, do me a favor and check this out.
Today, you missed your high school graduation. You started college just as George Floyd was murdered, and there was a reckoning on race. It's natural to wonder if democracy you hear about actually works for you. What is democracy? If black men are being killed in the street, what is democracy? Betrayal of broken promises still leave black communities behind. What is democracy? You have to be 10 times better than anyone else to get a fair shot. And most of all, what does it mean? As we've heard before,
Sorry.
To be a black man who loves his country, even if it doesn't love him back in equal measure.
Okay. Oh, absolutely. You're right. Just wallowing in victimhood. I think it was Robert Lowry last night who was talking about that speech. And he made a perfectly valid point. And the point was that speech that Joe Biden gave to the graduating class at Morehouse College described an era of the country that doesn't exist anymore. And I've always said that my audience, though small, is perhaps one of the smartest groups of people on the internet. Well, to prove the point, Robert's observation was echoed by none other than Bill Maher. Apparently, Bill's out selling something right now, maybe a new book or something, I don't know, but he's in New York City. He was on Gutfeld last night. But before he was on Gutfeld, he went on the Megyn Kelly show, and they were chatting, and apparently Bill had not seen the speech, so Megyn and her people played part of it. And I want you to listen to Bill Maher's reaction to this, because, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes I know there are moments in life when each one of us, myself, you, whoever, we all hear something and we look at it and we have an observation and we wonder, surely I can't be the only person that feels this way. Or a lot of times we're made to feel like we're alone. Well, apparently we're not so much alone. Listen to this. I think you're going to find this to be really interesting.
Oh, joy. That's his vision of life as a black man in America.
Yeah, it's anachronistic.
Right.
Not
See the
that-
one guy popping out from the back. It was almost like he was like, what'd you just say?
And it's not that there isn't still racism in this country, of course, and racist. Just as there will always be criminals, there will always be racists, and we should always be mindful of that and do what we can to call it out. But it's a very different country than it was even 10 years ago. And to be telling black students that you have to be 10 times better to get ahead, that's anachronistic. That's not the case.
He's not wrong, and I agree with you on this point. I totally agree with you. If you, I mean, and I've heard Bill Maher make this comment about himself. He's like, I haven't changed. It's everybody else has gotten crazier. Now I'm saying it a little bit differently than he would, but you get my point. Bill's always been a lefty. It's just that a lot of people in his orbit, and I small time, I love the way you put it. A lot of people in his orbit have gone even further to the left, and now he's looking like a conservative, which he's not. I mean, far from it. So, yeah, everybody's listening to that speech, and it's kind of like, God, you're describing an era of the country that doesn't exist anymore. But why is he doing it? Because he knows he's in trouble with the African American vote. And I don't think this time they're going to come to save him. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, you guys have been hearing me talking about it for a while now, and I stand by this. This election is any number of different things, but for one thing, it's generational. And if you want to drill down on that a little bit further, it's generational in this respect. Certain aspects of the Democrat Party that they have relied upon for decades to be the bedrock of what they are as part of their vote, it's just not there. It's just not there at all. You got older African Americans, they're still going to vote for Biden because they remember the days of the civil rights movement. They remember the March on Washington. They remember, a lot of evil, politicians. Okay. But there are younger African Americans. They're not going to vote Democrat just because you say you need to vote Democrat. That's what you do here. They're going to look at that and say, heck no, what's the Democrat doing for me? Which in part is why they're coming to Trump. Notice I didn't say they're coming to the Republican Party. They're coming to Trump. There's a difference. They see in Trump things they might like for themselves: wealth, affluence, access, notoriety, fame. Now, you can make an argument whether those things are good or bad or whether one person should or should not have them. But they're like, hey, this guy's been there, he's done that, and I'd like to be able to do it too. So I don't know, to me, have you ever heard the historical analogy, they're waving the bloody shirt? It's a term that was used just after the Civil War, and it would describe a Republican strategy of waving, throwing the war up in the face of voters as an attack on Democrats, reminding them, it was the Democrats' attitudes that got the Civil War started, and the Republicans will be accused, and in some cases appropriately so, of waving the bloody shirt. This is Joe Biden's version of waving the bloody shirt. This is Joe Biden saying to blacks, hey, there's still racism in America, and you can't do it without us, and you need me, and you got to vote for me. In so many words without actually saying it. You get my point? That's where Joe Biden's going with this. And people who are looking at this are saying, it's just not true. So. Oh, what have we got? It's 10 minutes to 9. Oh, I got to get this story in. I got to get this in. Julie Kelly. I got to find a different phrase other than shift gears. To switch stories. There we go. To switch stories. Julie Kelly, intrepid and erstwhile journalist who is not working for the Washington Post, who is not working for the New York Times, who is not working for CNN or MSNBC, has been doing God's work covering this trial down in Miami involving Donald Trump and the U.S. government and the efforts to try to get Trump found guilty of mishandling of classified documents and taking documents out of the White House he shouldn't have in his possession. Well, for the longest time, there have been documents under seal that nobody could get a look at. Well, slowly but surely, Judge Eileen Cannon is turning these documents loose. And what she is allowing the public to see and what Julie Kelly is reporting on make me equal parts angry and frightened all at the same time. I want to show you several different tweets that have to do with the FBI's raid on Mar-a-Lago, Trump's home down in Florida, from back in August of 2022. Because, folks, we're just now finding out something that had the American people known it before now, and we really had some time to marinate on this. And believe me, when this starts getting out in the ether, and it won't be because of the mainstream media, by the way. It won't be the mainstream media that puts this out there for consumption to let people talk about it. This is going to come from the right side of the journalistic spectrum. But when this gets out in full force, what the FBI did, this is going to make everybody's blood boil. And what I'm talking about is, this is from Julie Kelly's tweet thread. Tons of new unsealed filings on classified docs case. I will try to post as much as I can, but this one is mind-blowing. Now, let me read this very carefully. The FBI authorized the use of deadly force at Mar-a-Lago. Let me back up and say that again. The FBI authorized the use of deadly force at Mar-a-Lago. Now, folks, I want you to remember what Mar-a-Lago was all about. Mar-a-Lago was about the FBI being authorized to retrieve documents that the Justice Department felt President Trump should not have in his possession, and they needed to be brought back to the National Archive. And TBA brings up a valid point. On the day this happened, Trump was up at Bedminster, New Jersey, when his home at Mar-a-Lago was raided. That is correct. That is absolutely correct. But in spite of that fact, the FBI was authorized to use deadly force. Now, in case you think that Julie Kelly is exaggerating this, let me show you something. And this is going to really just absolutely boggle the mind. Okay. This is from some of the documents that have been brought out from under seal. According to an operations order produced in Discovery, the FBI believed its objective for the Mar-a-Lago raid was to seize classified information, national defense information, and U.S. government records as described in the search warrant, Exhibit 3, USAA, The order contained a policy statement regarding, quote, the use of deadly force, which stated, for example, law enforcement officers of the Department of Justice may use deadly force when necessary. The agents planned to bring a standard issue weapon, ammo, handcuffs, and medium and large size bolt cutters, but they were instructed to wear unmarked polo or collared shirts and to keep law enforcement equipment concealed. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a question. If the purpose of this visit from the FBI. I won't even use the word raid. Okay. If the purpose of this visit from the FBI was to retrieve documents, why would it be necessary to authorize the use of deadly force? I mean, keep in mind what this was all about. Let me read this again, just to make sure everybody's on the same page here. According to an operations order produced in Discovery, the FBI believed its objective for the Mar-a-Lago raid was to seize classified information, NDI, and U.S. government records as described in the search warrant. Okay. Again, I ask the question, if the purpose of this visit was to retrieve documents, then why in the name of God is the FBI being authorized to use lethal force if they deem it necessary? And let me read you. I'll put this up on the screen. I happen to find it real fast. Here is the policy statement. I don't think I can enlarge this, but I'll show it to you. This is the policy statement on the use of deadly force. I'll read this. Law enforcement officers at the Department of Justice may use deadly force only when necessary, and this is dated specifically for July 19, 2022. That is, when the officer has a reasonable belief that the subject of such force poses an imminent danger of death or serious physical injury to the officer or another person. Deadly force may not be used solely to prevent the escape of a fleeing suspect. Firearms may not be fired solely to disable moving vehicles. If feasible, and if to do so would not increase the danger to the officer or others, verbal warning to submit. I mean, they're literally being told, yeah, this is how you're going to do it. TBA over on Rumble says, so the raid on Mar-a-Lago was an attempted assassination then, wasn't it? I am not going to go so far as to say that. But I'll say this. If, God forbid, somebody would have said the wrong thing or taken the wrong action, you have the potential for people to get killed over documents. Documents, ladies and gentlemen. The FBI would have killed over documents. Yeah, I mean, use of deadly force means they can kill someone if they feel it is necessary. Yeah, TBA, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Try to entice violence, i.e., Ruby Ridge, Waco. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But it gets even worse. Lest you think that was bad enough. Yeah, they even had contingency plans in place. Check this out. Should media be present at Mar-a-Lago, all personnel will refer to MMOSC and adhere to the FBI media policy. Should the First Lady arrive at Mar-a-Lago, FBI, MMEM, and OSCs will be prepared to engage with FLOTUS and the Secret Service security team. Should the U.S. Secret Service provide resistance or interfere with FBI timelines, will engage with. Should guest reception be unwilling to provide a list of occupied guest rooms, the search team will knock on each guest room's door to determine occupancy status. Will they request a map, list of rooms, skeleton keys for all rooms? Yeah, they were ready to start busting into rooms. Good evening, sir. And I saw your message to me earlier today. I'm going to respond to it off air, but I saw it. I just want you to know I did. But yeah, I'm well. I'm glad to have you here. And brother, it's been a long time, and I'll explain why I've sort of been. I've been someplace and not been others, but I'll message you. I'll message you after the live stream. But glad to have you here, Tennessee Outlaw. I mean, they had contingency plans in place for what to do if certain situations show. They were prepared to go in room by room, regardless of whether there was someone occupying that room or not. Imagine being a guest at Mar-a-Lago, and all of a sudden the door busts open, and you got a couple of FBI agents coming in on you. And if you got someone special in your life who's in the room with you, holy cow, this is crazy. Absolutely crazy. And not only were they authorized for the use of lethal force, well, skeleton, I know, skeleton keys, I agree with you, WWG1, but I'm just saying that's the terminology they used. You know, not only did were authorized for deadly force, check this out. They ransacked Melania's bedroom. These are some, what are these? Yeah, they were just going through everything in her private. Yeah, this is nuts. And not only did they, and this was reported a long time ago. Not only did they go through Melania's room, we now have FBI records. They went through Barron's bedroom as well. Look at this. Yeah, child bedroom suite, lower level. This is insane, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely insane, which, and it's little wonder, it is little wonder it wouldn't surprise me if she did, and I wouldn't blame her. I wouldn't blame her at all. Her private effects are being rummaged through because the FBI is looking for documents. And by the way, I got a feeling I know exactly what they were looking for. And other people better at this sort of thing than I am have speculated the same thing. They were looking for Crossfire Hurricane documents. It's been speculated that there is something in those documents that is scaring the deep state to death. TBA over on Rumble says, I heard that Trump and his team sat up at Bedminster watching on closed caption TV the whole damn thing go down in Mar-a-Lago. I've heard the same thing. I've heard the exact same thing. So they rifled through her panty drawer for top secret documents? Probably. So when Trump heard about this, as he was coming out of court, on Truth Social, he posts, wow, I just came out of the Biden witch hunt trial in Manhattan, aka the Icebox, and was shown reports that crooked Joe Biden's DOJ, in their illegal and unconstitutional raid at Mar-a-Lago, authorized the FBI to use deadly force. Now we know for sure that Joe Biden is a serious threat to democracy. He is mentally unfit to hold office. 25th Amendment. You know, it cracks me up. It absolutely cracks me up when the Democrats make the argument that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy and he's dangerous and he'll use the power of the state to get after his political enemies. And he's talking about that Trump's talking about a revenge tour and everything else. And then you got these kind of stories about Joe Biden. And folks, do not think that Joe Biden at this point is above doing anything for the preservation of his political power. Joe Biden is a mean-spirited son of a bitch. I can't believe you'd say that about the president. If the shoe fits, baby. He's not done anything yet to convince me. He hasn't done anything yet to convince me otherwise. Joe Biden is an old, petty, mean-spirited son of a bitch who will do anything he has to do to defeat a political opponent. And not just defeat them politically. I mean, believe me, he is I think Robert Barnes described him as a mid-level street thug. And that's not too far from the truth. Biden will do anything. Biden was the one that sicked the FBI and the DOJ on Michael Flynn using the Logan Act. Okay. Joe Biden is the one who held up $1 billion from Ukraine unless they fired a prosecutor. Joe Biden's done a lot of shady shite over the years. So I put nothing past him. Nothing. We started off the live stream with good news and end it with this kind of news. And I'm like, who was it? Yeah, Tennessee, I saw your comment, and boy, how true. How absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And TBA over on Rumble says, and this is the same Biden administration that denied RFK Jr. Secret Service protection. Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think that's vindictive. I don't think that's vindictive at all. There should be consequences for what's being done to Trump. And by the way, and not just because it's being done to Trump. This could be done to any American, has been done to any American. Okay. This has got to be reformed. This has got to be stopped. Yes, everybody can see it's being done to Donald Trump. Yes, it's unfair that's being done to Donald Trump. But Donald Trump, what's happening to him is the best example of why the systems need to be reformed so that no American has to go through this. And frankly, if Trump frames it in that argument, he's going to win a lot more people to his side. Don't get me wrong. He's bringing people to him he never thought he'd have before. But if he frames the argument that way, you're going to have a bunch of people coming to Trump in this election that he never even planned on getting. So just saying. Well, I'll tell you what, it's about 9 o'clock on a Tuesday. The regular crowd shuffles in. So it's about 9 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up for the evening. Just as a reminder, please remember this Thursday night, we are having a very special live stream here on my channel. Some wonderful guests are coming back. Oh, Zippy, you left me with a couple more Rumble rants. ATF daily dose, but people refuse to see it. That's really true. There's another one you sent me. Let me make sure I get this read. Apologies. Here it is. Have a rant. My single cell brains process the civil as constitutionally versus noble caste system. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate all the Rumble rants. I genuinely do. But yeah, please remember this Thursday night at 6 p.m., some old friends are stopping by the electronic front porch. And let me get this thumbnail pulled back up. Here we go. Here we go. So yeah, 6 o'clock this Thursday evening, we got some friends of the porch stopping by. Mike Harlow's going to be here. Daniel and Brentley from Dangerous Rhetoric Podcast. And Gothics. And we're going to be talking about the upcoming Pride Month and all the issues surrounding it. So 6 o'clock this Thursday evening, I'm going to get this thing out there shortly. So, just be advised, if you got some time, swing by. We're going to have some fun with this. So look forward to that. And I'm looking forward to talking to all these people. I haven't talked to some of them in ages, and I really need to catch up with them. We're going to be back tomorrow night, 7:30, to talk some more about the news and what's going on. And I want to thank you guys. In Tennessee, I'll go ahead and briefly tell you what's going on. I'm doing more live streams these days than I am videos, because the videos were just getting hard on the mind and body, being up till 12 or 12:30 or 1 in the morning or 1:30 in the morning, and I was just turning into a zombie. So that's kind of why I'm shifting gears. And we'll get this thing built up. We'll get this thing rolling real good. We'll have hundreds of people in here before it's all said and done, and we'll have a good time doing it. But in the meanwhile, I'm thankful for everybody who's here. You guys are totally awesome. We'll be back tomorrow night, 7:30 Eastern. And thank you once again for stopping by for another session of Chatting on the Porch. And as we leave, as always, I give you the words of that great American philosopher, Tom T. Hall. Just remember, folks, it's faster horses, younger lovers, older whiskey, and more money. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow night at 7:30.